order. Please call the roll.
Mrs. Brown? Here. Mr. Gay?
Here.
Mrs. Houghey?
Lewis.
I don't have anything to do with it. Mr. Hoffman?
Yes.
Here.
Present.
Mr. Oakley?
Here.
Mrs. Smith? Here. Mr. Stevens?
Present. Okay, if you join me for an invocation, Lord, would you mind leading us in that?
Most Heavenly Father, we just want to thank you for all who come tonight to see the wonderful economic development plans that we have for the city of Louisiana. Really want to give thought to those who have lost loved ones and who have ones who are ill. We know that Dr. Green, our beloved Dr. Green, lost his Doris recently, and we just want them to know that our hearts are with them, and just pray that we can make good decisions with this meeting, and in your name, amen.
Amen. If you'd stay standing and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any changes or modifications to the minutes for 112? If not, they'll stand as written. And I think we had Murata on the 115 special council meeting. I don't recall exactly what it was.
It was corrected. It was,
You made the correction, though, right? Copies.
no, it's like, yeah. In the wording, Mark Ross said,
Oh, that's right. So the corrected ones are there. Are there any additional changes? And those will stand as written, as modified. We have a big night tonight, and we'll start right off the bat with star of our show, Community Edge. Josh and Steve, you guys introduce yourselves. You'll do it far better than I can. But this is Community Edge, and they've brought a presentation. I think this will be probably a 25-minute, 30-minute presentation, so I expect the council meeting to be a little bit long tonight, but well worth it. And with that, I'll turn it over to Josh.
Very good. We're going to have something right down here in front of you. Okay, good evening. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, it's a pleasure to be with you this evening. We really want to thank you for adding us to the agenda. My name is Josh Beck, and I'm president of Community Edge. I have with me here Steve Vetcher, who is vice president of Community Edge as well, the firm that was selected by the city to help guide you through this important process. And first and foremost, I want to thank you for that great opportunity. We have received such a warm welcome in the city of Louisiana as we work with this project and meet with residents and meet with business owners. It has truly lived up to our expectations of being a wonderful experience for us, and we want to thank you again for that. What the mayor's asked us to do tonight is to summarize and review really the steps of phase 1 and phase 2 of our scope of work, and then talk a little bit about the launch of phase 3. I want to warn you that this is a summary of months of work that were condensed into an hour-and-a-half presentation for an advisory committee of local residents that took place about a month ago. You're receiving the 20 to 25-minute summary of that hour-and-a-half meeting. So this is going to be high level, but also probably kind of fast-paced, and so we appreciate your patience in that. The project itself really begins with the idea that if you want economic development as a community, if you want job creation as a community, you have to do something about it. Long gone are the days, especially for rural areas, of simply sitting back and relying on organic growth, organic job creation in our community. If we want new companies coming in, we have to compete. We have to compete in this noisy and very competitive marketplace to show what our community has to offer these business prospects. If we want our existing companies to stay in our community, we have to have open lines of communication with the business ownership to ensure that we're fending off the threats of other communities, other regions, other states, even other countries who are trying to attract our local employers away. If we want them to expand, we have to make sure we're creating the right environment, providing them the resources that they need so that they can succeed as businesses in our area. And if we want new companies to be created, entrepreneurs with the idea of today to turn into the job-creating business of tomorrow, we have to provide them the right atmosphere, the right climate, the right resources in order to allow them to do that. And so just like all the other clients that Community Edge potentially works with, Louisiana sort of gave us that message from the get-go of, we know what we want, but we're also prepared to do something about it. We don't want to simply sit back and accept the status quo, and that's truly what it takes. And so the project that we've been asked to complete, we've got a little bit of a PowerPoint on the screen above you. I apologize to some of the audience members who probably can't see it, but it's really, again, a three-step process. The first two steps that we completed that we're going to be reviewing today are, number one, what we call an industrial site analysis. For lack of a better term, what that means is we're figuring out what the product is that we're selling and promoting to businesses that might be investing in our area. Understanding our strengths, understanding our weaknesses, gathering the information that companies are going to need in order to make informed location decisions. Steve's going to talk to you more about the findings of that industrial site analysis. The second step is the marketing plan. When we understand the product, now we have to put it in a mechanism so that we can effectively communicate to our target audience, to these business owners, the message that we want them to hear and relate to the city of Louisiana when making that location decision. Again, in a very competitive, a very noisy marketplace where lots of other cities, counties, states, regions, and even countries are competing in this field. We have to have preparedness, we have to be able to respond quickly, and we have to have a compelling message that resonates with that audience in order to get them to choose the Louisiana area. Again, it doesn't just apply to new companies coming in, also a message that we want to make sure our existing companies are relating to our area when they're considering where do we expand, potentially where do we relocate to. We want them to have that positive message here in Louisiana. So, that said, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Etcher to talk a little bit about the industrial site analysis, and then I'll be back to talk about the marketing plan.
Thanks, Josh. Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. It is a delight to be here tonight. I absolutely love coming to your community and visiting it. For those that live here every day, you may not see it the same way as somebody who visits your community, but you have a wonderful product here to put in the marketplace. And the process of the industrial site analysis was not only to kind of figure out what is your product today, but what is the product you're going to be offering in the years ahead. What is the future product that we need to be preparing for now? The complete report of our industrial site analysis has been provided for you in a printed format, and I'll just take a few minutes tonight to kind of highlight some of the key elements within that report, and I would encourage you to study it. And if there's thoughts or questions or feedback additionally you'd like to give to us, please funnel that to us. But the purpose of the industrial site analysis is really determine what type of industries you can and should be attracting to your community and which ones you can support. Not all things fit in all communities. We need to identify what that is. And then to determine what level of business activity, industrial growth you can support. Primarily in the arena of infrastructure capacity and existing and available land uses, along with what your labor force skills will actually help you support within your local community. Then to determine what are the viable locations for future industrial growth and for the industrial base of your community. And then to help identify that competitive edge, that compelling that message you have for the marketplace of what you have unique to offer here in your community. Because there's a lot of communities out there vying for industrial projects, industrial growth. So what makes your message so unique and compelling? So we go through this process. It's a holistic approach to look at your community. We look at your infrastructure's availability and its capacity. What do you have and where is it? We evaluate your existing land use in the surrounding area. Where is your current economic base? What additional growth can that accommodate? Where are other opportunities that we can begin to grow and expand? And what are the constraints with that land utilization that could impede or impact your industrial growth? We then evaluate your region's existing business base to see what workforce skills are prevalent within your community, which ones can complement by the businesses that would be attracted to your community. And then we begin to identify, ultimately with the goal of recommending sites for future industrial development. Where can you grow your business space? When you outgrow what you currently have, and that is our goal, is to outgrow that, what's next? And what is our future product out there? And ultimately this will lead to a message that we will use then to take to the marketplace to promote the opportunities that are available here within your community. The details of the infrastructure analysis is several pages in the report you have, and I'm just going to hit a few of the major ones here tonight. And I'm going to give you a few numbers, and don't let that maybe distract you from the fact you've got a great product for the marketplace. First of all, in your transportation assets, you have an incredible network of transportation facilities. You've got a roadway network that provides ease of access to all markets. You can easily access the state highway systems, which brings up to the U.S. highway systems, with convenient access to both Interstate 70 and Interstate 72. The city has not one, but two Class 1 railroads serving your community. You've got BNSF and Kansas City Southern, both with rail presence and access opportunities presently within your community. That is an incredible asset for your region. You have access to the Mississippi River through multiple river port locations, including port access at the William B. Smith Industries and also at Folsom Harbor. Air transportation services are available through nearby airports at Bowling Green, Hannibal, Quincy, and St. Louis Lambert International Airport, which is essential to support economic development and industrial attraction. Public water is available through the planning area by both the City of Louisiana and through the Public Water Supply District of Pike County. Those systems are capable of producing 2.1 million gallons of water per day. You're currently utilizing about a third of your available capacity. This is an incredible feature to have available for industries that are reliant upon reliable and potable water supplies. Your wastewater services are available through the City of Louisiana. You currently have a permitted capacity to treat 2.8 million gallons per day. You're using on average about 800,000 gallons per day, and your peak capacity is 1.2 million gallons per day, still leaving an abundance of wastewater capacity that could accommodate additional industrial development and growth within your community. Your energy available within the community is abundant. Electric and gas utilities are currently utilizing less than 50% of their available capacity. This too is an incredible asset to take to the marketplace. And your broadband access is robust. With fiber in your community and node access available here within the town, you have opportunities to get up to 100 megabytes per second download speeds, which is essential to support industrial growth within your community. In summary, to take the check marks to the right, you have sufficient capacity, and in some cases, abundant capacity to support economic growth. You have positioned your community in a way that will actually be attractive to businesses in the market. Once we determined that there was sufficient infrastructure to support industrial expansion within the community, we then begin the process of identifying areas that are viable for future industrial development. Where does it make sense to cite the future economic base and a growing base of the Louisiana community? To do this, it's important to understand the impediments that could impact industrial development within your community. Site development is a lot of art and a lot of science. There are a number of impediments that can influence site development and land utilization. There are internal influences, and those are those elements that have been created by local authority, and include such elements as your zoning regulations, your land use plan, your permitting, and your site development requirements, along with the current land utilization. There are external influences that can impact industrial development, and those are those elements that have been created or recognized by authorities outside your local control. These can include the designation of historic properties and cultural resources, endangered species habitats, and public lands. And then there's also, of course, natural influences. Those elements that are a result of the physical environment that exist within your area, such as floodplains, wetlands, geology, topography, and waterways, just to name a few. And as we contemplate the opportunities for increased industrial development, we need to consider how these limitations may change how your area develops, how it may influence how your area develops. So as we stack all these influences on top of your community, the map, as you can probably see, you may not see it well from the back, gets a little bit busy. There are a number of constraints that can actually impact how you develop as a community. In my opinion, there are only limited areas for industrial development in your community, within the region. And these are there because you have topographic challenges, you've got floodplains, you've got wetland issues, you got specific location issues with infrastructure and the capacity they're in, you got key transportation assets are just along your corridors. And because of the limited geography that is available, could be suitable for industrial development, it's also at great risk of being used for uses that would impede industrial development within your community. Once that alternative use is actually put into place along these corridors, such as if housing was developed in some of these priority corridors, that would basically render that site unavailable for future industrial development. So it's important to understand the dynamics that industrial development can create upon a specific corridor. We believe you need to seize the opportunities now and begin planning the product you're going to take to the marketplace long into the future. And to do that, you have to take action immediately before those opportunities are lost. After reviewing the availability of the infrastructure and the various land constraints, there's really 4 areas that kind of emerge as potential areas for future industrial development. And I'll talk quickly about those 4 areas, but there's a detailed write-up on each location within that report. The 4 areas include the Highway 54 East Corridor, as we've labeled it. And this is that area that lies within and proximate to the western edge of the city limits, along Highway 54 and Business 54, basically from Georgia Street out to Noit Creek. This is an area that lies relatively flat, and there's existing development along this area. The city actually owns some industrial zone properties within this corridor as well. The Highway D corridor is that area of land that lies near the intersection of Highway D and Highway 79. There's a substantial industry presence there already, and there's great opportunities for future expansion and development along this corridor. Both of these 2 principal corridors have great energy supply available. There are substations located in and proximate to these sites that will address the needs of industries that come into your community. We've also identified the Highway 79 corridor as something that's very important for your region to understand and consider for future development. Obviously, it's some distance from the city of Louisiana, but the scale of what's available down there makes it an important regional priority for you that you should long consider as an important priority for your community. That particular area has access to rail, and has access to the port, and obviously this is the site where Holston was. So we believe that should be a priority as you move forward for industrial development. The 4th area that we've identified, we are labeling it the Highway 54 West Corridor. This is that area that lies just east of the US 61 and Highway 54 interchange, just east of the city limits of Bowling Green. This corridor, I believe, should be considered for long-term development because of its proximity to US Highway 61. Because you have Kansas City Southern Rail access right along that corridor, those are 2 critical transportation modes that are very, very attractive to industries today. Even though there may not be water and wastewater servicing that site now, there are areas of land that are available. The topography is relatively flat, and you've got key transportation assets that you should take advantage of within those corridors. And we've identified these areas because they can be supported with infrastructure. You have access to energy that businesses need. It will maintain compatibility with the surrounding land uses for the most part, and it is really the most suitable area for industrial development. It limits your development costs because of the topography challenges you have within the community. Now, because of the nature of the flatness of some of this terrain, there are some floodplain issues along these corridors, but that's nothing to actually concern yourself with. I would never encourage development in the floodplain, but those floodplains will make a very natural buffer to surrounding land uses, making it even more compatible with the surrounding area. To prepare the community and kind of preserve these corridors, we're going to recommend you take a proactive approach to protecting your product that you're going to take to the marketplace. We're going to recommend 4 specific actions that you take. Number 1 is to pursue corridor preservation. Initiate this preservation process through zoning, through annexation where possible, and by communicating with the landowners the potential that property may have for the industrial development opportunities coming to the community. We'd also encourage you to initiate engineering and planning studies. Develop a conceptual plan and preliminary engineering report for the city-owned industrial property that lies on the western edge of the city of Louisiana. And include in that the cost of utility extensions to that site so businesses can physically see what it's going to take to make that site shovel-ready. And we'd also encourage you to develop a preliminary engineering report to extend water and wastewater services to those other priority areas. So as opportunities avail themselves, you know what it's going to cost, and you know the route you're going to take to get water and sewer to those critical corridors. And then we would encourage you to develop a preliminary engineering report to identify opportunities and alternatives to connect Highway D to Highway 54. So as that corridor begins to develop for industrial purposes, we're not creating a traffic or congestion issues in downtown. So look and begin to explore opportunities to make that connection. We would also encourage you to enhance your transportation asset utilization. Work with the ownership to enhance the utilization of the port facilities along the Mississippi River and the Holston Harbor and the Wayne B. Smith Industries. This will help bring energy to your economic development efforts. We'd also encourage you to coordinate with the local railroad companies to find alternatives or find locations that are suitable for rail spur extensions. The main lines are actually getting very busy and very congested. There's only limited spaces that you can put in new spur. So begin those conversations today to identify what their priorities are and help them align with yours. And finally, begin to explore financing options. Accessing state and federal funds for infrastructure expansions are very important for you to have success in your community's infrastructure deployment. When businesses expand, when eligible businesses expand within your community, creating jobs and making new investment, that will enable you or qualify you to seek application for state and federal funds for infrastructure. If you've got the plans on the books already for all these preliminary work, you know what it's going to cost. So as businesses expand, you tap into those funds and you start doing these improvements one grant at a time, bringing new resources into your community. But then it also encourages you to explore local funding options as well. Look for those tools that are out there to help you grow your community, whether that's using local bonds, community improvement districts, or transportation development districts. There's a number of tools that you can explore to begin to make your industrial site analysis become a reality, the recommendations become a reality. But basically, in summary, I could have said what I said 10 minutes ago by saying what the study has shown is you have some fantastic features to offer the marketplace. You've got a great product to take. You've got a compelling reasons business need to be considering Louisiana as the place for their growth and expansion. Now you just need to take that case and take it to the marketplace. And to do that, I'll let Josh pick up from here.
Thank you, Steve. So Steve's, again, primary background is in infrastructure planning, community planning, transportation planning. My background is in project management for companies, helping companies choose locations and helping existing companies choose where they're going to expand. And so it was my great pleasure to work with Steve through that process, but then also see the product and try to align it with where we thought existing business needs would be through the marketing planning process. The process itself was really 3 primary steps. Number 1, identifying and clarifying who our target audience is. Who is this that we're trying to reach so that we can customize a message to them. Number 2, developing the core message, the compelling case that is going to resonate well with that target audience, with those location decision makers within the business. And then number 3, developing a brand that sort of takes that core message and puts it into a format that we can communicate quickly and effectively in a very noisy marketplace with a limited amount of time. So anybody in your private business that's been through some marketing planning work, very, very similar to what we do here, only our product, of course, is the community as opposed to something else. So beginning with the target audience identification, we're going to stay high level, but the result of this process was that the target audience is decision makers and decision influencers involved in selecting locations for primary employer facilities. We're focusing on primary employers instead of secondary employers, and we are focused both on decision makers and decision influencers. And a key reason for that, you can see at the chart at the bottom, this actually shows in the state of Missouri the sources of leads of projects that are looking to locate new facilities. And as you can see from 2011 through 2013, between 40 and 60% of those projects coming in were actually from third-party advisors, site selection consultants that are advising companies on location decisions. So it's not just the company themselves that we want to be targeting, it's also these third-party advisors. For 2014, the data was just released, and it was in excess of 60% of projects in Missouri are coming from these third-party advisors, so a critical audience for us. When we're developing our core message, a couple
Josh,
of...
can
Go
I
ahead.
add, you mentioned primary and secondary employers, if you can take 1 minute
Sure.
to mention that.
Yeah, very briefly, the difference between a primary employer and a secondary employer is a primary employer is someone who sells a product or service to the rest of the world, primarily to external markets. I know we have Trailer Man Trailers here with us today, so I'll use them as an example. They sell a trailer to a client in Atlanta, Georgia, and they turn the revenue from that sale into investments in their facility, investments in their workforce, payroll in your community. A secondary employer are those that primarily serve the local market. That provide retail services, restaurants, etc., that provide services to basically take that cash flow, take the payroll in the community, and move it around the community. Secondary employers are very, very important. You'd like to keep those dollars moving in your community and not leaking to other regions if at all possible. But for us, when we're talking about prioritizing our effort, we wanted to focus on increasing the size of the pie of the local economy as opposed to dividing the pie up into thinner slices, if that makes sense. So we're looking for those employers that are primarily serving external markets and bringing revenue into the community, into the local marketplace. The core message development, again, for our core message to be effective, it has to hit a number of metrics for us. It has to be authentic. It has to be credible. It has to match the assets of the local community with the needs of the target audience. We spent a lot of time on this, really making sure that it's something not just that the community has as an asset, but something that's of importance to our target audience, and preferably very important. An example might be this is a beautiful community with some wonderful tourism assets. That might not resonate as high on the list of considerations when a company is making a location decision. So we want to make sure that even though that's an asset to us, it might not be the most appropriate for the economic development core message. We want to focus on competitive assets, preferably something that's somewhat unique, that not every community can say that they have. And then finally, just some practical things. It needs to have broad appeal. It needs to be adaptable to segmentation. And it needs to fit within the context of state-level messaging as well. You're rarely, if ever, going to be considered during a project like this as Louisiana. You're going to be looked at as Louisiana, Missouri, and you're going to be partnering with your state-level organizations when you're pursuing these projects. It's important that we partner together. Matching the assets of the needs to the target audience. So again, we spent a lot of time really developing metrics like you can see on the right, where one axis is how important is it to the target audience, from not very important to very important. The bottom axis is the strength of the asset, how strong, how unique, how competitive is the asset here in the community. And we're really looking for those assets that follow from the top right. It's something that's important to them, but also something where we have a unique and compelling case to make. I'm not going to get into some of the other details of this slide. I know it's hard to see as well. But to keep us moving, one of the key assets that we found jump up in that top right corner was this. The location and the accessibility of the community. Very, very important to companies when they're making location decisions. One of those graphics that you saw on the previous slide was a survey of site selection consultants and company executives involved in location decisions. Those red circles you saw pop up were how many had to do with accessibility and central location, etc. That's a very, very important criteria when companies are making location decisions. And what does Louisiana, Missouri have? You have central location in the U.S., you have proximity to many major markets, you have highway accessibility, access to not one but two Class 1 railroads, and on that previous slide it will show you how many of these consultants and companies are looking for rail access. That number is increasing year over year. And then finally you have access to the river with a developed port that has the ability to take on more customers. That is a key asset that we wanted to tie this core message to. The final note there at the bottom is that this was an asset that when we interviewed area employers and we asked them that question, tell us what's unique about the area, tell us what's compelling about the area, why is this a good place for business? The first thing said by nearly every one of them was, great location, very accessible. That's important for our business. We can move product to customers very easily. We can receive product from suppliers very easily. That's important to us. The second, and there's only two, I promise, the second key asset that we wanted to tie to is that employers want a community that is pro-business, it is stable, and it is supportive long after the ribbon-cutting ceremony is complete. They want a reliable, sound business climate for locating in, but they're also wise to the idea that many of these communities and economic development efforts are very, very supportive during a location decision, trying to woo the company to come to their location versus a competing location. After the project locates there, they're on to the next one, and they're really not there to support the company through their growth and through their launch even. In Louisiana, we offer a well-established community with pro-business policies. You have a great tangible example to look to with your Enhanced Enterprise Zone. And you have a pro-business and dedicated leadership. Again, this was the second thing noted by nearly every company that we talked to, saying this is a community that's engaged. We have the mayor that is stopping by on a frequent basis, asking us, not what we're used to, maybe in other communities and other states and other regions where it's your water bill is late. They're actually stopping by to ask us, what can we do to help you with your business? How can we be more effective as your community partner? That's very, very important, an asset that we wanted to tie to. So with our core message in place, we develop our brand. It needs to meet a couple of criteria as well. Number one, it has to effectively communicate the core message. It has to be memorable. It has to create an ease of identifying who and where we are, a unique challenge for a city named after, or I shouldn't say named after, I don't know which was the order there, but it's sharing a name, I should say, with a state. A lot of the surveys, and we're bouncing ideas off of folks about some of our brands, it was, yeah, that's a great place to go for Mardi Gras. So we needed to very quickly confirm this is not Louisiana, the state that we're talking about. It's Louisiana, the city in Missouri. So we've got a quick video that can kind of summarize, I think, that business case, and we'll show you some of the branding that we've come up with as a result.
Louisiana, Missouri is a very cool business community with a strong history of supporting and growing companies.
Louisiana is a super place.
We have felt like part of the community from day one when we came here.
If you were thinking about moving your business to Louisiana, here's one thing to consider. If you're in the direct-to-consumer business, your biggest vendor is your shipping provider. And quite frankly, if you can locate yourself here, you're going to save simply by changing your zip code.
I think our greatest advantage is our central location, coupled with the fact that we have two major Class 1 railroads, and the river and the highway all right here converging.
Within a 3-day delivery reach of here is probably 80% of the U.S. population.
Highway 54 is a main thoroughfare, a nice 2-lane highway that goes east and west Missouri, and we are 6 miles from Highway 61, which is a 4-lane highway. It takes you to Highway 70 into St. Louis, where a lot of our materials come from.
We're centrally located, so we're shipping to consumers. We are within 4 days of any place, and we're within 2 days shipping of 75% of our customer base.
Unlike a lot of communities that will work very hard to get you here and then move on as soon as you've made your investment, Louisiana stays connected, wants to continue to dedicate itself to our businesses and our success as a community, as a business community. We're in it for the long haul. It's about sustainability.
We find that the city government to be very receptive of things that we want to talk about, things that we want to change, so that the business climate can be supported and growth is awesome.
We at Trailerman Trailers have found the Louisiana local government always willing to work with us and extend their hand.
That mayor is clearly business friendly. We've met with him personally on a number of occasions, as have other employers. He spends a lot of genuine amount of time wanting to know about our business. How can we work together? How can we make things better?
The employees that we have are generally long-term employees.
For a business like ours, it's nice to have that labor force of people who want to work and work hard and are very productive.
School system's excellent. The hospital is just down the street. It's excellent.
Just minutes from 2 of the best fire protection districts. We have a fabulous YMCA, and we have fabulous people that want to work with you, that are concerned about you and your business, and genuinely want to help.
These solid businesses that have a history, it hasn't stopped Louisiana from focusing on what it needs to be next. And it is so neat now to be a part of seeing Louisiana reinvent itself for a new generation, a new time, and embrace that.
Look deeper, investigate, come talk to us business owners, and we'll tell you. It's a good place to be.
Louisiana, Missouri is the right community for the long haul. By that I mean, if your company benefits from long-haul logistics, Louisiana is absolutely right for you. If your company is looking for a stable and established region that will be an effective partner for many years to come, then Louisiana is your place. Louisiana, Missouri.
It'll come as no surprise, but we had great material to work with for that video. That was actually the editing of about 8 hours of footage. We actually couldn't get some of these business owners to stop talking about why they love. So it was a good problem to have though. So as you saw in that, which is just one of the pieces of the brand awareness strategy, that video will be transferred over to the city of Louisiana. I gave it in your packet tonight. This is the brand that we had sort of come up with. Louisiana, Missouri for the long haul. You can see the imagery of the state of Missouri, as well as the accessibility via road, rail, and water. Looking back at some of those key marks that it had to hit, number one, ease of identifying location. Of course, we have the state imagery in there as well. The one piece of feedback that we got from the advisory committee that was not positive was just that they'd like to see that word text, that the text added in there with the word Missouri. We thought that was great feedback, so that's in there as well. It has to communicate the core message, and it has to be memorable. We find that it's easy to be memorable when you tie to a tagline or something that's already in folks' mind that they're familiar with. And so as you can see, if our core message is we want to communicate that ease of accessibility and good for logistics, as well as being a community that is not just here for the project in the short term, but here for many years to come, Louisiana, Missouri for the long haul really met that mark for us. Finally, it needs to be complementary of existing community branding. We know the city's invested some money in and some of your own materials, so we wanted to use similar fonts, similar colors, and then it also has to be complementary of the state level branding. Your state level partner brand is Missouri, we get business. We wanted to complement that with, we don't just get business, we're here for the long haul. We're not just here for this project, we're going to be here for you long into the future as we welcome you to be part of our business community. So, again, some of the deliverables that you'll see, we have the video that's been produced, we have a website that's being launched under ChooseLouisianaMo.com that will all be transferred over to your ownership, social media sites, the proposal template that's in front of you, with the branding, but also with all the information from Steve's report put into a format that is going to be able to address companies' questions very quickly. So when you get those calls from prospective business owners, you can turn around your response in a matter of minutes. And then we're also going to be working on a marketing calendar once the budget is clarified a little bit more. So I know we're way past our time here, but just very, very quickly to talk about phase 3, which will be coming next. Now we're talking about recruiting the economic development professional to the city staff who is going to be able to implement the recommendations and lead this effort from here forward. 7 steps that we're completing in this process. Number 1, evaluating the city's current hiring policies and practices. We've completed that. Number 2, developing the job profile. This past Thursday, we had an advisory committee meet providing us feedback on what should be the role of this position, what are some recommendations on salary ranges, what are some characteristics we're looking for, etc. Those folks have been sent an electronic survey, and we're meeting again this coming Thursday to refine that job description that will be a recommendation to the city for your approval. After that, we're going to develop and launch a promotional strategy to make sure we get this job opening in front of qualified candidates. Steve and I and our team will work to screen applicants based on your approved qualifications and requirements, and then evaluate qualified candidates as well, trying to get to that point of having 3 finalists that we can present to the city for consideration. The selection committee, I believe, Mr. Mayor, will be the city council that will meet with those 3 qualified candidates and then make your hiring decision, and of course we'll help you with candidate selection and announcement thereafter. So stay tuned. You'll be hearing from us again on this topic of bringing new economic development professionals. Thank you, Josh.
Go ahead and we'll take about a 4-minute break and let them switch up stuff here, and you want to stretch your legs, feel free.
Yes, I am. Are you okay? Something I still thought you were. She's healed tonight.
She got paid.
Yeah, she got paid.
You doing all right? How about you?
Present and accounted for.
Yeah.
With that has to turn that on. I have headphones in.
It does now. Thanks to the bottom of my shoe.
You know, I live on the campus, but I can't possibly keep my car dirty.
Pray for rain.
I noticed that.
They made sure Shirley was out of town that day.
No, they didn't even speak to me. They didn't even talk to me. Hey. My mother will make that right.
How they adapt. We can heat them for them. There's skills there. Well, yeah. I wanted to try to tell me something. I put my coat on. He jumped up and went right to the.
Oh, you can give that one to Lori. She'll
Give the Lord the lead. Probably check my mail today. I got busy. What color are you?
All right, I think that's 4 minutes. Go ahead and continue. We have another economic development guest. Grateful to have you here, Carolyn. Would you like to come up? And this is continuing my effort to reach out to some county level organizations and make sure we have contacts with our partners. And Carolyn is Director of the Lake County Development Authority, so it's very appropriate that you're here tonight.
Well, thank you guys. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So mine's not going to be as exciting as theirs was. That's very exciting. That's good for the city of Louisiana. Couple things I'm going to cover because I know you guys have a long night. But two of the things that kind of actually go with this is the state, as you know, the county with the enhanced enterprise zone is one of the incentives that the city has taken advantage of for expanding businesses. One of the other programs it's a nationwide program, and it's Missouri Work Ready Communities. It's another one. It's a National Career Readiness Certificate. It's a tool that Missouri Career Centers provides to businesses to screen and hire candidates as well as promote existing employees. So this is something that you have to do countywide, and we have taken the lead role, and we have our first meeting at the end of February. We'll be inviting the chambers, the mayor, the city council. We've got the schools, the career center, along with the VOTEC, will all be part of the committee that's required. Basically, there's 3 testing levels. There's categories. There's mathematics, reading, and identifying. So you're required by the county to have so many transitioning people take the test, so many existing employees take it, and so many unemployed. So as leaders of the community, you'll see more information on this because we're going to really push it to be a certified work-ready county. It's something that, again, we feel really site selectors when they come and they're looking at our community, looking to see if we have that skilled labor force. And that's one of the issues that we always hear when we're out with the state and with the employers, that getting a skilled labor force. So that's something that hopefully we can get that done. They said it's a 2-year process. We kind of feel like the team that we have built, and we're starting to get the word out that we will get that done in a year and a half. We're going to push that really hard to promote it. We've also worked with the state to try to get some grant funding in so that the students 18 and under will be paid for. These tests cost $25. So we're going to try to work with them. We're also going to work with the state to try to get another grant for the transitioning, the unemployed, to get that funded as well. So it encourages them to also take these tests. We had an opportunity a few weeks ago to spend the day with one of our partners, Missouri Partnership. The city is familiar with Missouri Partnership. We were able to have them for the day and take them on a tour throughout the county. A big part of the day was spent in Louisiana and Clarksville area. So again, it was a great opportunity for us to have them here. It's one of those visits that...
They have a new director, correct?
They have an intern right now. That position has not been filled, so there is an intern. Sabash. So, we even had the gentleman from Kansas City come over and spend the day too, so I was kind of excited for us, because typically in our regional groups, we have to pay to have these visits, so we were able to do that for the day without paying. The other thing we were getting ready to work on too, and part of their presentation was transportation. I've been meeting with the commissioners. There's been a lot of talk lately, and we talked about this at the end of the year, about meeting with all of the businesses in the county to talk about transportation issues. And as we started talking about this discussion about funding and being part of the Port Authority and trying to pull some funds there, and the CDBG and the different areas of what we could pull, MoDOT has been attending those same meetings that we've been attending, and